day with the front pages and inside the papers as well. So let's break all of that down with broadcaster and writer Edward Adu and the PR consultant Paul Charles. Thank you both very much indeed for joining us. It's great to see you again. Let me just kick off with you then, Edward. We're looking at the Telegraph, which is of course highlighting the big day that is today. The Lions are on, but there's also something to be said about diversity, right? It's diversity within women's football there.
It is. I mean, we've all been cheering, saying, "Look, it's coming home," and I'm still sticking with 3-1 as being, the undercover Edward Adu tortoise. But when it comes to diversity, there has been calls for. I mean, when you look at the team, they're great, but when you look at the makeup of the team and in terms of the representation, there's been calls. There's been various comment pieces by people concerned about the lack of diversity. And I know there's been calls to try and reach out to the next generation. I think the FA are trying to do that, and they said there's plans in place to try and reach out grassroots to schools and to colleges. And so because this tournament and what the Lionesses have done has inspired a next generation to come through. I think the concern is not just to reach out just to say one side of society, i.e. it's just got to reach out to young white girls. It's got to reach out to everybody, in particular black and Asian young girls coming through. And it's got to be the makeup of the demographic and what society is and what the makeup of England. And I think that's the concern where, and it's clearly it's not intentional. It's obviously, the team and who's picked for the team. But I think going forward, Serena Wiegman has done a great job. But I think those in control probably need to think, look, in order for this to kind of just reach out to different communities, it's probably time for us to try and make it more representative. I think that's what needs to be done.
Absolutely. And Paul, the front page of the Mirror, definitely one of my favourite front pages today. Absolutely stunning. Of course, talking about the Lionesses roaring. Hopefully they'll be roaring into success and bring some happiness to the doom and gloom that we've been experiencing recently.
That's right. Here come the goals, says the Sunday Mirror. And I think England is a winner, whatever the result tonight. Obviously, I'm predicting that 4-1 victory over Germany. Let's hope it comes to fruition. But the economy is going to do well, whatever the result. We've seen £140 million boost, according to the Sunday Mirror, to the economy due to all those beer and pizza sales and replica shirt sales. One supermarket expecting to sell 25 million bottles of beer, 1 million bottles of fizz and 2.5 million frozen pizzas. And that's before you even consider the sponsorship deals that come out of this. Whatever the result tonight, those fantastic players will see big brands, beauty brands, car brands come towards them and say, we want to sign you up. We want you to be the face of our brand over the next few months. They're going to do well, whatever that score.
Absolutely, and it's about time too as well, isn't it, that they are on par financially with the men as well.
Yeah.
Just moving on, different topic there. Edward, I'll come to you with this. The story in The Observer, this is page 10 of The Observer, looking at the potential drought that's facing the UK at the moment, but also then looking at the other issue of leaks, which those bosses in the water company really need to get a handle on.
Everywhere in London, when there is, if there is roadworks or something, I always question what's happened. There's been a water leak, and it seems like we're going back to the 90s where there's been calls for hosepipe bans. I remember where the area was where I used to live. They were Victor Meldrew types who would be looking at other neighbours just to find out if they were using their hose, and they would make that magical call to Thames Water and say, they find a hosepipe bans. And unfortunately, I think we may be going back to those times, and there's been calls apparently for the government to try and implement, to try and to take action in order to try and avoid this from happening. I mean, we're not as bad as the kind of critics say, but apparently we could end up possibly queuing for water from the back of trucks. Now, Vanessa, I love having a shower 3 or 4 times a day, especially in this heat. So, I mean, if there's any plans to be made in order to for water metering, I mean, that's just going to be that's horrid for me. And obviously, if we're going to cut down on water, but I think common sense probably needs to prevail on this, and this is one probably for government to take up to prevent us from prevent those measures from taking place.
Absolutely. And Paul, very quickly, because we're running out of time, but this headline here in the Sunday Telegraph, this is buried in page 2. Rail strikers are lazy and selfish, says Tories stuck at Dover as network grinds to a halt. There's quite some fiery words there.
Yeah, we're thankfully seeing many more tourists, millions of tourists come back to Britain after 2 years of drought during the pandemic. So that's good news. But the Telegraph is homing in on claims from some tourists that the rail workers are lazy and selfish because they chose to strike yesterday when many leisure travellers are wanting to get across the country. Stories of people arriving at Dover expecting to get on a train and they had to pay for a taxi to get into London. And this is not doing Brand Britain any good. And overall, when you tie together the ongoing rail strikes, and there are more to come, of course, from ASLEF and the RMT, and you tie it together with lost baggage at Heathrow, the problems we've seen at our ports at Dover and Folkestone in recent days, then this is saying that Britain's infrastructure is falling apart, and we don't want that image at all. So
we're running out of time, unfortunately. Edward Adu and Paul Charles, thank you very much. It's
Vanessa,
great to have you.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you, and we'll see you very shortly.